These are not forests of wood and leaves, but magical underwater forests of giant seaweed, with long
We are witnessing a silent crisis. The kelp forests, vital nurseries for these sea lions and countless species,
To truly get what we stand to lose, we have to journey into a healthy, thriving seaweed forest. Imagine slipping into the cool, clear water off a temperate coast. The noise of the surface world just melts away, replaced by a profound, cathedral-like silence, broken only by the gentle sway of the forest around you. This is a world built by what are called foundation species, mostly kelp and other large brown algae. Think of them as the architects of this underwater metropolis. The structure is complex and multi-layered, a lot like a forest on land. It all starts on the rocky seafloor, with a root-like structure called a holdfast. But unlike tree roots, the holdfast doesn't pull nutrients from the ground. Its only job is to grip the rock, anchoring the holdfast itself is a miniature city, a maze of tangled, finger-like projections. In these little nooks and crannies live a ton of tiny invertebrates. Brittle stars hide from predators, sea snails.
The more complex the holdfast, the more life it can shelter.
From the holdfast rises the stipe, the kelp's long, flexible trunk.
Attached to the stipe are the blades, the equivalent of leaves.
This is where the magic of photosynthesis happens. The blades soak up energy from the sunlight filtering down and pull nutrients directly from the water.
Some kelp have these cool, gas-filled bladders at the base of their blades that act like little buoys, pulling them up toward the light.
These blades create a dense, three-dimensional world. Schools of silvery fish weave through the fronds, their scales flashing in the dappled light. They're here for protection and for food. The kelp forest is a critical nursery. Countless fish species, including ones we rely on like rockfish and cod, lay their eggs here.
The dense canopy is a protective curtain, hiding vulnerable young from predators.
Life here is an intricate dance. A brilliantly orange Garibaldi fish fiercely defends its territory.
A sheephead, with its powerful jaws, crushes shells.
Higher up, sleek harbor seals dart through the kelp corridors, hunting for fish.
They use the forest to rest, hide, and hunt.
Even magnificent gray whales have been seen using kelp forests to hide their calves from killer whales. But maybe the most crucial resident is the sea otter. Floating on its back, cracking open a sea urchin with a rock, it's more than just a cute show.
The sea otter is a keystone species, meaning its presence has a massive effect on its environment.
Sea otters are the guardians of the forest. They love to eat sea urchins, and by keeping the urchin population in check,
It's a perfect example of the delicate balance that defines this ecosystem.
And it's not just physical structure, it's a biological engine.
These forests are massive carbon sinks. Through photosynthesis, they absorb huge amounts of carbon dioxide, and they also protect our coastlines by dampening the power of waves, a service that's becoming more critical with rising sea levels.
They even help keep the water clean by absorbing excess nutrients from pollution.
And through it all, they pump out oxygen. A huge portion of the air we breathe comes from the ocean, and while phytoplankton are...
When you add it all up, support for fisheries, carbon cycling, coastal protection, the economic value is astounding. This isn't some remote, insignificant habitat. It's a global powerhouse that's been operating just out of sight. A world of staggering complexity and incalculable value. And it's a world facing a silent, creeping death. Now, picture that same spot of ocean, but a few years later.
the water's murky.
The vibrant green and gold are gone.
As you descend, there are no towering columns of kelp.
The seafloor is a desolate wasteland, a carpet of spiny purple sea urchins. This is an urchin barren, an oceanic desert, where the once thriving city has been reduced to rubble.
This isn't a hypothetical.
It's the reality for huge stretches of our coastlines. While trends vary by region, a 2023 UN report noted that 40% to 60% of kelp forests have been damaged or destroyed over the last 50 years. From California to Tasmania, from Norway to Japan, these vital ecosystems are in retreat.
The causes are a deadly cocktail of human-induced pressures.
The story often begins with losing a key predator.
On the west coast of North America, sea otters and the massive sunflower sea star historically kept urchins in check.
But the fur trade in the 19th and 20th centuries decimated otter populations.
More recently, starting around 2013, a mysterious epidemic called sea star wasting disease swept through Pacific. The sunflower sea star was hit especially hard, with its population declining by over 90% and leading to it being listed as critically endangered.
With their enemies gone, urchin populations exploded.
A herd of them can move across the seafloor, chewing through the base of the kelp and setting the entire plant adrift. Once the forest is gone, the urchins can enter a kind of zombie-like state, surviving on scraps and preventing any new kelp from taking root.
The complex, three-dimensional world is flattened into a two-dimensional wasteland. But the ultimate driver, the threat behind all others, is climate change. Kelp are generally cold water species.
As human activity pumps greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the ocean has absorbed about 90% of the excess heat. This leads to a steady rise in sea temperatures, pushing many kelp species past their limits.
This gradual warming is punctuated by extreme marine heat waves, the ocean's version of a blistering heat wave on land.
Events like the blob, which hit the Pacific coast from 2013 to 2017, can be devastating. The warm water stresses the kelp, making it more vulnerable to disease and starvation. And recent research has shown this isn't new. Some studies suggest massive kelp forests were disappearing due to warming. The third major threat is pollution. Runoff from farms carries fertilizers into the water, triggering blooms of other algae that can smother kelp. Sediment from construction and logging can cloud the water, blocking the sunlight kelp needs to survive.
These threats don't act in isolation. They form a vicious cycle.
A forest weakened by a heat wave is less able to withstand a storm. A coast where predators are gone is primed for an urchin outbreak.
The result is a system-wide failure.
When a kelp forest disappears, so do the nurseries for countless fish, the coastal protection, and the carbon sink. A bustling underwater city becomes a ghost town. This is one of the great unseen environmental tragedies of our time, and the clock is ticking. That image of an urchin barren is bleak, but it's not always the end of the story. Around the world, a growing movement of scientists, conservation groups, indigenous communities, and local volunteers are rising to meet this crisis. They're the heroes of this story. Plangsand. The United Nations has even declared 2021 to 2030 the decade on ecosystem restoration.
This is the race to rebuild.
The history of trying to help seaweed is surprisingly long, with centuries of seaweed cultivation and management in Japan. The first step is often dealing with the immediate problem, the plague of sea urchins. Teams of divers descend into the barrens, armed with hammers, to manually cull the urchins. It's a tough, painstaking process, but it clears the way for kelp to return. In Australia's Port Phillip Bay, where urchins had taken over huge areas, the Nature Conservancy successfully cleared urchins. In some places, the focus is on bringing back predators. The recovery of sea otters in parts of California and Alaska has shown that when the guardians return, the forests can rebound with remarkable speed.
Once the ground is cleared, the planting begins.
Scientists have developed some really clever techniques. One involves collecting mature, reproductive kelp from healthy forests. Back in a lab, spores are settled onto twine or rope. These seeded lines are cared for in nurseries until tiny kelplings begin to grow. The ropes are then taken back to the restoration site and wound around the barren rock. This method has been a huge success in Port Phillip Bay, where nearly 500,000 juvenile kelp were planted in just the first 2 years. After only 7 months, those kelp were already growing, maturing, and becoming reproductive themselves.
Another amazing technique is called green gravel.
Developed in Norway, this method involves seeding small pebbles with kelp spores in a lab. Once the kelp starts growing, the pebbles can be deployed at scale, maybe even just by dropping them from a boat. This could dramatically cut the cost and time of restoration, making it possible to reforest much larger areas. Some of the most ambitious efforts are in Asia. South Korea has a massive national plan to restore huge areas of their coastline. And initiatives like blue carbon credit systems are emerging in countries like Japan, providing financial incentives for restoration.
Beyond just restoring what was lost, there's a growing field of regenerative seaweed farming.
This involves cultivating seaweed specifically for its ecosystem benefits.
The market for this is growing fast.
These farms can absorb carbon, clean polluted water, and create new habitats. And emerging research is looking into how seaweed farms might even help fight ocean acidification by changing seawater chemistry, allowing the ocean to lock away even. Of course, the science is still evolving, and researchers are moving carefully to make sure these large-scale projects are a net positive for the environment. It's all about collaboration and sharing knowledge to give these forests the best chance of success.
The recovery of these magnificent underwater forests isn't just a job for scientists.
It's a challenge that needs all of us. So what can you do?
First, support the organizations on the front lines.
Groups like the Nature Conservancy, the Kelp Forest Alliance, and countless local initiatives are leading projects that need funding and volunteers. Your support could help buy the supplies for a new kelp nursery, or fund the dive teams clearing urchins.
Second, think about your own carbon footprint.
The biggest long-term threat to kelp is a warming ocean. Every action we take to cut emissions, driving less, conserving energy, advocating for strong climate policies. Third, be a conscious consumer.
Support sustainable fisheries that don't damage marine habitats. Be mindful of pollution in your own community.
Advocate for marine protected areas that give these ecosystems room to recover.
And finally, spread the word.
Most people have no idea these vast, vital forests even exist, let alone that they're in trouble.
Share this video.
Talk to your friends.
The more people who know about the hidden world of kelp, the stronger our collective will to save it becomes. From the shimmering canopies dancing in the sunlit shallows to the tangled holdfasts clinging to the rock,
they are bustling cities, vital nurseries, and powerful climate regulators.
They are a world we've taken for granted for too long, and one we came dangerously close to losing. The story of the kelp forests is a story of collapse, but it is also a story of hope. It shows that even when an ecosystem is pushed to the brink, recovery is possible. The sight of a barren seafloor slowly being reclaimed by young kelp, the return of fish to a new forest, is a...
The race to rebuild is on, and the outcome isn't certain. It will require our ingenuity, our dedication, and our collective will.
But by working together, we can ensure that these magical underwater forests, these breathtaking, life